Hello there, folks, and welcome to the Jefferson Educational Society's Global Summit 12 presentation of A Conversation with Ali Zaidi. I'm Ben Spigot, I'm the Vice President at the JES. In this program, which originally aired live on Tuesday, May 11th, 2021, I spoke with the Deputy National Climate Advisor to the Biden administration about the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for the administration, the nation, and beyond when it comes to climate change and the policy addressing it. Before we get to the program, I'd like to thank all of our event sponsors: Erie Insurance, Erie News Now, the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority, WQLN Public Media, and the American Tapestry Project, and our Global Summit event partner, the City Club of Cleveland. And I'd like to remind you that you can access additional programs to stream on demand at jeserie.org, where you'll also find a wide range of publications from reports, essays, and timely writings, and more. And be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all JES content. And now, here's our conversation with Ali Zaidi, the Deputy National Climate Advisor to the Biden administration.
Welcome, Jefferson family. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our very first Digital Global Summit speaker series. I'm Joyce Savacchio, proud to serve as chairwoman of the Jefferson Educational Society and grateful to have served as mayor of the city of Erie for 12 years. We are especially proud tonight to introduce you to our special guest, Ali Zaidi, one of the most influential people in American government, as he serves President Joe Biden and climate advisor Gina McCarthy as the first Deputy White House National Climate Advisor. It wasn't long ago that Ali grew up in the Erie area. Born in Pakistan, he moved to Edinboro with his family in 1993 and studied at General McLane High School from 2000 to 2004. Ali went on to earn his undergraduate degree at Harvard and his law degree at Georgetown. He then served in many roles during the 8 years of the Barack Obama administration, but now faces the greatest challenge of his professional career, helping the Biden administration shape environmental policy amid climate crisis and deadly pandemic. Indeed, these are perilous times, but we are fortunate to have one of our very own, Ali Zaidi, serving such a pivotal role in America's future. Now, please let me introduce Jefferson Vice President Ben Spigot, who will serve as moderator for tonight's program.
Thank you, Ms. Savacchio, and thanks again to Erie Insurance and to all of our sponsors and our event partner, the City Club of Cleveland, for helping to make tonight's event and the rest of the Global Summit 12 series possible. Mr. Zaidi, welcome to the Jefferson Educational Society's Global Summit, and welcome back to Erie, Pennsylvania, if only virtually for tonight. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. It's so good to be with you, and so good to be introduced by Mayor Savacchio, who was actually the mayor when my family moved to the tri-state region. So just really honored and humbled to be with everybody tonight.
Thank you, sir. So you're going to give a few remarks, and we're going to hear from you some updates, what the administration's doing, some key things you want to focus on, and then I'm going to dive in with a few questions. And one more time, I'm going to remind folks that we are taking questions in the Q&A function of this Zoom webinar. So, sir, over to you.
Thanks, Ben. Look, it's really great to be with folks tonight and have an opportunity to talk about President Biden and Vice President Harris's agenda. Really, as we try to size up this moment that we're in, the United States is faced by a public health crisis, an economic challenge that was brought about in part because of that crisis, but really that exposed some of the great structural challenges in our economy, including our underinvestment in infrastructure year over year, a racial justice crisis, exposing again issues that have mounted decade over decade, and work that we really need to dedicate ourselves to, and a climate crisis. And all of those four crises have intertwined to bring us this moment, one which is, as Mayor Savacchio said, a moment of peril, but also a moment of tremendous opportunity. And that's what excites me every day to come to work is this sense of possibility. One that the president has really tried to animate our entire government behind, and has called on every quarter of society to step up so that together, united, we can meet these crises, not just in a defensive way, but in a way that advances the ball down the field, in a way that helps us build back better than we were just a year or two ago. Every day, for me, the work really focuses on one of these crises in particular, and that's the challenge presented by climate change. And it's important to understand how climate manifests in our society. We see it in the form of challenges in housing, whether it's folks who can no longer afford to pay their energy costs and could benefit from investments in energy efficiency, or who have been displaced because of a storm or a wildfire. Whether it's the intersection with our food system, we saw the lack of resilience in our food system over the past year, but we see that same food system stressed year over year by increasingly frequent droughts, for example, or hurricanes. You see the incredible damage that was brought by the derecho in the Midwest. Grain silos bursting open, and it's a reality that I think we need to grasp and then invest in the solutions that come with it. We see the intersection with race. You look at communities that have been historically redlined on housing policy are literally hotter than communities that weren't, because there's more pavement and there are fewer trees. And so you understand that all of these issues knit together, and the solutions are exciting. The solutions allow us to, in fact, create economic opportunity. And if we're diligent and deliberate about it, in the way the president's laid out his plan, then we can create economic opportunity in the places that have been left behind and locked out. So look, eager to get into a conversation here, and Ben has promised me people are going to ask tough questions, so I'm excited about that part. But really, part of what motivates me every day to do this work is we are at a historic moment with a groundswell and I think an alignment of political support around the country that's excited about reaching for this opportunity. And I get to work in a building for a president who I think sees that opportunity and who wants to seize that opportunity. That's what excites me.
And Ali, if I can pick up right there, I mean, it sounds like what I'm hearing you say is that addressing climate change could be this administration's moonshot. That this is a big moment for that. This is a now or never. This is a big task ahead of us. Do you see this being analogous to a moonshot opportunity?
Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of remarkable, right? We all know that picture of Earth rising, the view of this planet that folks who took a really long journey to the moon got to see. And you talk to those astronauts and you read what they've written, and it's this sense of wonder and joy and privilege that we do inherit this fragile environment. And it's not fragile in the planetary sense, because the Earth is going to do just fine without us. It's fragile in the sense that it's able to sustain us. And I think you're right. going to take every sector of our economy. It's going to take the same ingenuity and that same intrepidness and innovation, and it's going to take all of that coming together um, to reach for the moon figuratively, and do what we need to do on climate. But here's the one nuance. It's important to not conflate the sort of inspirational, aspirational, and the magnitude of this with a sense that the solutions are somehow far away, or that they're just in our imagination, or that they're just in the lab. The solutions are here. We know what we need to do, and we need to get doing that right away. So I think that's one of the things that's a little bit different is, this isn't in some ways as exotic of an endeavor.
Literally not rocket science. If we're thinking about that, I think that's the way to take that message home. And Ali, one of the things I really appreciate about your approach to this and hearing your remarks is I heard twice the word at the base of intersectionality, and talking about how climate change intersects with food systems and how it intersects with racial justice, which we just had a program and a conversation on last night. Do you think that intersectionality makes addressing climate change easier or more challenging when we're looking at the problem in conjunction with other crises or other challenges facing the nation? Does it make your work easier, or does it make your work harder?
I guess it depends on who you are, right? There are people who see big, complex things, and that puts, cement around their feet and it freezes them. And then there are people who see big, complex things and they see the opportunity in it, and that's a spur to their side. And I think the way we like to define the ethos of this country is that those big, difficult, complex things, they excite us as a country. So, I actually think it's tremendously helpful to see the intersections, to map the intersections, to understand how climate intersects with public health, or with race, or with housing, or with transportation. And what it allows us to do, one, is advance powerful substantive solutions that move our society forward in a bunch of different ways. But it also allows us to build this coalition that is broader and deeper and more diverse. And we're in a democracy. The United States is a democracy, and climate change is an opportunity for us to show why democracies can be so powerful in the face of crisis like this. It's because it gives us a mechanism to band together and forge solutions that are going to move all of us together forward in the face of this crisis.
Ali, thank you for that. And I want to pull from the audience questions and take one here. And I think the audience question, I can't help but think of the Energy Communities report that recently came out and was addressing the element important to me as somebody born in West Virginia and grew up in southwestern Pennsylvania, the importance of addressing abandoned coal mines. And this person's thinking in terms of Pennsylvania, looking at the chances of getting funding for plugging abandoned oil and gas wells. Is there a chance for that proposed in the administration's budget, that we would see any sort of funding or any sort of measures directed at addressing abandoned gas wells and abandoned oil wells in Pennsylvania? Because we know that we're looking at now some funding from the administration for abandoned coal mines. Are we looking at other industries when it comes to energy like this?
Yeah, and I love Northwest Pennsylvania. That's my home, but love Southwest Pennsylvania too. And in particular, Mayor Peduto, who's been just a phenomenal leader on this with his Marshall Plan for Middle America, and this the incredible convening and creative thinking that he's done. We have proposed $16 billion as an administration, as part of the American Jobs Plan, to reclaim coal mines and cap abandoned oil and gas wells. And I think this is exactly that thing I was talking about, looking at the challenge and thinking about the possibilities. What we're talking about here is reducing methane emissions that are leaking into the atmosphere that we know are a incredibly powerful greenhouse gas. We're talking about reducing local environmental pollution, things, toxics leaking into water. And we're talking about creating jobs that folks have the skills and the training to do right now. They don't need to get trained to do this work. They can do it right now. The same derrick operators, they can get to work. The same folks who are out there changing the landscape, re-leveling the earth and the soil, the earth movers that were once employed in mining operations can be employed again in reclamation operations. So I think this is the way we need to think about attacking the climate crisis, is to see how can we create opportunity in the places where people need it. How can we unlock public health benefits? How can we create good paying jobs? That's the playbook.
Yeah, and I think the Marshall Plan that Mayor Peduto has on the table and others have joined in is a great playbook for folks to check out if they're unfamiliar with it. I'd want to call their attention to it, and I don't want to eat up too much time for us to talk about that. And of course, there's a ton of audience questions coming in, and people are excited to have one of their own here. And this would not be an Erie event with somebody who has an Erie connection without an Erie question. And so we are curious, not to add any pressure here, but what did you learn about climate change in life growing up in Edinboro?
That's good. That's good. Well, first, I was just scrolling through the attendees, and I really wish we were in person because I'd come give you a hug after the event. But I see Judy Scaletta, who was my calculus teacher, is in the audience. So one thing I learned from Erie, Pennsylvania is how to do this work, how to think about this stuff analytically and rigorously. And I'm grateful to public school educators like Rick and Judy, who literally transformed my life and opened up the possibilities that I've been able to enjoy. But look, the thing I learned from Erie, from Edinboro, and those are two pretty different places, but we can pretend like it's one big community. First is to be specific. It's very easy. You go in the ivory tower and you do this, whiz bang analysis, and you think about millions of people this and millions of people that, and gross domestic product, and what's Pareto efficient and whatever. And what you miss is pockets of pain or pockets of promise, because you failed to focus on the specific people. And I think growing up in a town of 6, 7, 8,000 people, depending on which side of homecoming you're on, gets you to realize that every single job, every single person, every single kitchen table matters. And as a policymaker, as hard as it is working at the federal level, you still got to think that. You got to think that granular. And then I think the second big thing that I've learned that I think is really important is to not count any community out. Plastics came to Erie, tool and die, the shipping industry left, paper left. We're building trains. I don't know how well we're doing on that. And it's easy to say, oh, well, let's count them out. But you go back and you keep focusing, because there's so much decency and dignity and drive in every zip code in America. And the president talks about this all the time. We gotta make sure that when we tackle this climate crisis, that we're using it as a vehicle to extend the geography of opportunity to every zip code, period.
And Ali, I think right at that. So thank you. And I think it's amazing you're combing through the participant list and seeing who you know. That's great. I love this interaction that we can have still in a digital platform. And I think this goes right at the heart of that, where another audience question is thinking about this area specifically, Erie, Pennsylvania. What kind of green jobs do you see being ripe for this region that we can reasonably expect to develop? As we're looking to transition economies throughout the nation on that granular level, where do you see the future of job creation in a place like Erie, Pennsylvania? What can local government do to help support that? What can business do to support that? But where do you see the future of green jobs in a place like Erie, Pennsylvania?
So one opportunity is in the buildings material space. During during the Obama administration, the Department of Energy supported the Erie region in building out the capacity to manufacture advanced windows. And it sounds, it's like, okay, why do I care about that? Well, as we think about the building sector, which accounts for a significant share of our emissions nationally, and we think about what it means to have LEED buildings or LEED certified buildings, net zero buildings, those high efficiency materials, that high efficiency window technology, that's going to be a big deal. And we can manufacture it because we've got the know-how, we've got the facilities, we sit at the right intersection from a supply chain perspective. So that's one space that I think is very exciting. I think another piece that's exciting to me is, I look at this offshore wind supply chain, and man, I get really excited about that. Because when you think about 30,000 megawatts of offshore wind off the coast, just the East Coast, that's before we get everywhere else. You're talking about steel factories in Alabama and West Virginia sourcing the Jones Act ship being built in Brownsville, Texas. But what about the resin and the materials that go into those big blades? Why can't that be built in Erie? And as we think about, Lake Erie and the opportunities in the Great Lakes for offshore wind, why can't that be a spur for our materials scientists and our fab folks to get to work? So look, part of the way to think about the economics of this, people see the wind turbine, they say, well, that's not happening here. But maybe the steel that goes into that is happening here. Maybe the iron casting that needs to support that could happen here. Maybe the motors and the gears could happen here. So we've got to try to win the whole finish line. That's the bottom line. We got to go for all of it.
And I think it's the complexity of all that goes into making something like that happen. Just because you're not seeing it doesn't mean that your community is not a part of that or could be a part of that. Thinking too, in the excitement of some of the things going on in the new administration, this person from the audience is very excited, and there are several exclamation points that definitely speak to, I am very excited about this. They're asking about the new CCC, the Civilian Climate Corps. And we're looking at a return to some older practices, but breathed anew. So can you speak to the new CCC, the Civilian Climate Corps that the administration is exploring?
So the president has called on Congress as part of his American Jobs Plan to create a Civilian Climate Corps $10 billion investment. Just for reference, the whole of the Corporation for National Community Service, which is like AmeriCorps and everything like it, has an annual budget of $1 billion. So we're talking about a significant significant step change. We think about, John Kennedy and the Peace Corps, and we were talking about, 7,000 people in 40 countries. As we think about it, we're talking about order of magnitude more than that. And it's people being dispatched all around the country to gain skills that will translate into a career doing a few different things, whether it's helping advance this clean energy economy, or it's helping make communities more resilient and adapt better to the changing climate. They'd be supporting projects like that all around the country. And I think it comes back to this question of how do we use this challenge to galvanize all of us, doing some piece of it, tapping into some aspect of the opportunity. I think this is a great way to bring a new generation of folks, a diverse generation of folks, into industries that in some ways haven't existed in the past.
Ali, thank you for that. And I know we're almost out of time, and I appreciate you. You're coming live from the White House doing this program, and we're trying to be as respectful as we can. So I'm going to bundle, if I can, a couple of different audience questions, because that to me, again, sounded like an intersectionality, a touch of intersectionality that we talked about earlier. And here we have people asking multiple different questions about education and the role of education. How do we make sure that we're getting climate change into curriculum? And how do we make sure we're teaching about that without necessarily making it a hot button political issue? Because to me, and maybe I'm off base here, but I see climate change being politicized, and facts are facts are facts, and this is science, and we know that the climate is changing, and we know that we're affecting that. How do we work that into curriculum to make sure we better understand what's happening, and that the generations coming up after us, after millennials, they understand continually what needs to be done and what's happening?
The curriculum questions probably for folks. I think this is Jim Wise, the math department's showing up strong from General McLane. But the curriculum question is a technical one for teachers, but I think there's a broader question, two questions that I want to maybe try to answer. First is, science deserves respect, and it deserves an audience. For some reason, in our political discourse, science has become something we argue with, as if argument can change the facts, and that doesn't make sense. We can argue about our response. We can argue about the public policy that follows from it. But we got to open up our eyes to the physical, scientific realities that are right in front of us. Otherwise, we're not going to make good decisions, and otherwise, we're not going to have a good debate. And I think, whether it's in the classroom or it's in the boardroom, we got to make sure that the science there's an integrity around making sure our citizens are exposed to science, whether we're talking about a pandemic or we're talking about the climate crisis. The second is, what are we focused on? What do people want to talk about? And I think this is where you got to meet people where they are, and you got to sort of focus on the reality of sort of real people in their lives, right? Not everyone gets paid to show up to work like I do and think about climate change and the public policy response to climate change. But people do sit around a kitchen table and they think about, what is the job I'm in today? What's the job I'm going to be in tomorrow? Sounds like the solar and wind industry are taking off. Is there a role for me? They do sit around the kitchen table and they talk about, is there lead in my pipes? And is that hurting my kids? That's a question they're asking. They are asking a question about, is, trout season changing this year? Are there things we're doing to, the Allegheny or to French Creek or whatever, that are irreversible unless we get our act together. They are thinking about, is the floodplain changing? Do I need to get insurance? So I think we got to realize that intersectionality, it's not an academic intersectionality, it's a real life intersectionality. And those intersections are being picked up by people every day. They're talking about it at their kitchen table, and they want to talk about it in the classroom. And we've got to be responsive to that. And we've got to arm people with the tools that are going to help them meet this moment. And by the way, as we do that, we're going to be advancing the solutions to climate change. So I think it's, part one answer to your question is give science its due. But part two is this is here. People are talking about it. And our job as a government is to lift up the solutions and be a partner and be shoulder to shoulder with folks as they take this on.
Ali, that is a tremendous note, and I'd say let's end there. But I'm going to sneak one more audience question in here because the teachers have shown up in full force here, and this is the final one I'm going to ask. And this says, "I'm a 71-year-old retired teacher living in Erie. What is the single most important thing I can do as an individual to affect climate change?"
That's cool. I like that, and I'm gonna answer that. I'm gonna give a shout out to Brandon Langell, who was in my class in high school. But I will answer the question to the 71-year-old teacher by lifting up the young people and just helping people understand. I think a perspective I've been able to gain. So I worked till the last day of the Obama administration. And I walked out the gates of the White House in January 2017. And then 4 years later, I walked back in. Pretty fortunate, January 2021. And a lot of things had changed. The cost of solar and wind and electric vehicles, they'd come down. The market's uptake of those technologies, that had gone up. States and cities, they'd adopted policies that were pro-climate. Labor unions were training their workers for the opportunity that was right in front of us. But something really big had changed, and that was our political capacity to do something big in this moment. And that political capacity came because people organized, they marched, they talked to their family members, they talked to folks in their congregation. And a lot of that work was young people, a lot of it, for real. And so I think if there's one thing that's the most important, I know people want to hear me say, buy an electric car, get a ground source heat pump. They want me to say, recycle your paper. Though I don't mean to minimize those personal actions. Those are really important. What's really, really important is that your government, in this moment of crisis, in this moment of opportunity, meets the challenge, tackles it right on. And the way that happens, because we live in a democracy, and that's a thing to celebrate, is by all of us aligning behind the decision to collectively seize that opportunity. And so it's, what I would say is, pass the mic to a young person, lift them up, pass the mic to folks who don't get heard in Black and brown communities, in refugee communities. We, I think, have a beautiful history in Erie of lifting up communities that are new to America and communities that have been here for a really long time, who usually don't get the microphone. So do that. I think that's the most important thing, is build the will, build the momentum, get us and the people on the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue, get us to do the right thing. Because if we do, we're all going to be better off because we did it.
From the Q&A, not a Q, just a statement of thank you. Thank you for sharing your gifts and making a difference. I hope that we can meet and talk in person sometime soon. Your GM family is incredibly proud of all you do. Live from the White House tonight, tackling those issues, working on them, Mr. Ali Zaidi, National Deputy Climate Advisor to the Biden administration. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing your insights, knowledge with us, and taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule to do this program. We are so grateful for you.
Ben, thank you so much. Really grateful.
And a huge thanks goes out to our entire JES team as well for helping to put on this program under the leadership of our president, Dr. Furky Faradi, and to the JES Board of Trustees under the leadership of our chairwoman, Mayor Joyce Savacchio, and to all of our event sponsors, Erie Insurance, Erie News Now, WQLN Public Media, and the American Tapestry Project, and to our Global Summit event partner, the City Club of Cleveland. And of course, to all of you watching along at home, interacting. So cool to see that happening live in the Q&A section where we can chat with presenters and he can look at participants and give shout outs to all of you people. We're so grateful. These programs and discussions and the exchange of information and ideas would not be possible without you. Folks, for more information about the JES, including how to register for additional Global Summit events, including ones on science tomorrow, including ones on foreign and domestic policy throughout the rest of the span of this 3-week series, please visit jeserie.org. There you're also going to find videos of other past presentations available to stream on demand and publications, including reports, essays, and timely writings, as well as information about other JES initiatives, such as our Civic Leadership Academy, Lifting Young People Up, and our Ramey Fellows program. And be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For the Jefferson Educational Society, I'm Ben Spagan. Be safe, be sound, and thanks for listening and learning with us.